tags. Thank you. Hello. Thank you so much for coming. I want to first begin by thanking Father Mattia and Father Sassy for their hospitality and being here at the Newman Center. It is such a beautiful facility, and I just enjoy getting ready, coming through, spending prayer time in the preparation for today, and we're so grateful. They have been so kind to us and offered us every amenity possible. So please, if you see one of them, pat them on the back and tell them thank you for their hospitality. There's only one announcement I want to make before we have our keynote speaker come up. For those of you who are or know someone, have children, grandchildren, that are seniors this year, I want to announce that we again are looking for a recipient for the John Nolan Warrior for Life Award. It is a $500 scholarship award, and so anyone who is a senior in high school can apply for this. If you go down to the Nebraska Right to Life table, there are forms there for you to apply, or you can go on our website, nebraskarightolife.org. And please take advantage of this opportunity. John Nolan was a gentleman who lived predominantly in the Lincoln area, was from Kansas City initially, and he was a prayer warrior who did amazing things for the cause. So when he passed away, his family felt very compelled to donate the money sufficient to fund this scholarship and continue to do it year after year. So if you know someone who qualifies, please take advantage. Thank you. All right, I'd like to announce our keynote speaker, Sarah Jokowski. She is a life, foster care, and adoption advocate with years of experience in the pro-life movement. She was rescued from abortion after her Hispanic birth mother was referred to a New Orleans abortionist because his costs were low. He intended to leave Sarah for dead following a breech delivery at 26 weeks, but a miraculous pro-life decision, her birth mother, who suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, fought for her life, and Sarah was sent to a children's hospital and survived. Sarah is a graduate with a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Communications and Biblical Studies from Moody Bible Institute in Chicago. She now lives in New Orleans, Louisiana with her husband and her son, Jesse. Sarah is currently a staff member of the Louisiana Right to Life and previously contributed to pro-life work in Colorado with lifenews.com, which if you haven't ever taken advantage of lifenews.com, it's a great place to go for good information. She's also worked with Colorado Citizens for Life, which is, like we are at Nebraska Right to Life, a state affiliate of National Right to Life. And she has worked with Colorado Family Action, a policy partner of Focus on the Family. So please help me in welcoming Sarah Zavorski. I've just been told to also announce that there is more overflow seating in the lower level. So if anyone would like to take advantage of that, thank you.
Good morning. Wow, this is so beautiful. I feel so humbled and honored to be here with you today. I hope that for the many of you that were at the march are disappointed in my presentation now, because we're going to go into some deep stuff. As Sandy said, my name is Sarah Zavorski. I'm from New Orleans, and I always, before I talk, I share my story publicly very often, but always before I talk, I prayerfully consider, what is the message of today? Because I believe that the Lord always, Christ is always bringing us back to the message of today. And I did that for this. And I think my little journey here, I've never been in Nebraska before, but I think my journey here really gave me the addition I needed for today's talk. I left my hometown of New Orleans yesterday after a tough week. I was delayed in Dallas because of wind. I had a really turbulent flight. landed in Omaha in blizzard conditions, and then at some point en route, my cousin texted me that there are riots in Omaha, and I was like, what's going on? And then once I got into Omaha, Nebraska, I picked up my rental car, and there were blizzard-like conditions on the road, which I haven't dealt with since living in Colorado. So I was a little nervous about that, and I mean, it was really good. Like, the weather was clear in Lincoln. It was very clear. It was wonderful. But on the way here, I saw cars on the side everywhere. But this really brought me to a picture of where we are now in our country, which is we are in a time of endless obstacles in front of us. I had endless obstacles, it felt like, to get here. Yet I persisted and I arrived here. These obstacles often leave us feeling hopeless. Internally, within the pro-life movement, there are many unknowns as to how we're going to proceed in our work in saving lives from abortion amidst a pandemic. There are sometimes disagreements and confusion on how to proceed with our activities. Many of you, I know, have been devoted to this cause for many, many years and are understandably tired. Then externally, as I mentioned, we're rioting in the streets. There's political discord, even among my own family and friends. And I don't know about you, but every single time I turn on the television or go on social media, I'm astounded by how much violence and hatred there is for one another. And honestly, it leaves me feeling paralyzed. I'll admit, I've been paralyzed recently. And during this temporary paralysis, some questions come to mind, genuine, important questions come to mind. And that is what I'm doing for life actually making a difference? What am I going to do next to help? Is there anything I can do? Are lives really being saved? What's my step? And ultimately, the question I hear all the time, is there an end in sight to the killing of unborn babies in the womb and the violence abortion brings to women and their families? And ultimately, the question I sometimes come to, can I quit this work? Can I quit because I'm tired, because I'm exhausted, because I feel paralyzed? For myself, my reasoning, my devotion, my fidelity to the cause, you could say, is personal. As Sandy kind of highlighted for you, I'm going to share again, though. In January of 1990, my birth mother, a Hispanic woman, I know I don't look Hispanic, but a Hispanic woman, an immigrant from Honduras, consulted with an infamous abortionist after being referred to him by a friend. The physician was known for helping poor minority women facing obstacles, which my mother certainly was. Here's a little view of her life circumstances. Her pregnancy with me was the result of an extramarital affair. My biological father was a prominent physician in the city and had no interest in my life. She met him by working as his maid. And my stepfather was mentally ill himself and abusive. He was in no condition to help her. I was her 7th pregnancy. She already had other children, including twins. She lived in economic poverty and relied on government services like Medicaid and food stamps to survive. She struggled with mental illness, as Sandy said, paranoid schizophrenia, which really stole most of her life from her. She was also a victim of domestic violence. Her first husband married her for U.S. citizenship and hurt her regularly. She was familiar with abortion, having 2 abortions in her past before my conception. It wouldn't be exaggerative of me to say she was in a crisis pregnancy. And looking at it all today, I don't know how much more difficult her life could have been at that time. But I have such compassion for her that I certainly didn't have in the past. I can understand what led her to pursue abortion. I've realized it was the hopelessness and the fear of her life's circumstances that led her to abortion's door. Yet in the very end, she reversed course that day in January. The abortion physician delivered me breech at 26.5 weeks and advised my vulnerable mother to leave me to die on the table. He told her I'd be a mental vegetable, unable to have a normal life. But thankfully, in a miraculous moment in time, she threatened to sue him if he didn't get me immediate medical help, which he did. From there, I was sent to Children's Hospital Trauma's birth ward in New Orleans, where I remained until I recovered. I learned many years later that the abortion physician was under review for performing botched abortions as early as 1989, just the year before, which I believe made my mother's threat persuasive enough for him to get me help. Sadly, my birth mother passed away 10 years ago, this past October, and her and I had a very difficult relationship. In fact, I'd say our entire relationship was smeared with pain. But today, I have a little bit better visibility of her. I have some clarity that's brought me to one firm conclusion. Her life to me wasn't defined by those obstacles, but by that one action she took at the very end to save my life, despite everything going on around her. And I've decided, and I believe, we all have to have tunnel vision now. It's our time to learn more by getting tunnel vision and looking at the primary priority for us. What am I supposed to be doing for life? You see, that decision was only one moment, but we have many decisions in front of us of how we're going to move forward, but we must continue moving forward. I suffered tremendously in my birth mother's home, but I think by reflecting on her story and stories like mine and thinking about the thousands upon thousands of women in her shoes, we can help pull ourselves out of our temporary paralysis, which I do regularly. I go back to that moment in time and say, what can I do to reach women like her? I'm not saying we don't look at the long-term goals here. I'm not saying we don't look at overturning Roe versus Wade. Don't get me wrong. But the truth is, there are women every day that you will encounter that are looking for you. They are looking for you outside of that abortion clinic. They are looking for you on the other side of their telephone. They are looking for you at the grocery store. And they are looking for you at their church. Research shows that upwards of 65% of women who choose abortion face some kind of coercion, meaning that someone else is pressuring them within their circle to have an abortion, whether that be a partner, a friend, a loved one. Most of these women are not sitting in an abortion clinic wanting to end the life of their unborn child, celebrating that decision. They are not empowered. They feel they have no choice. So let me say it as plainly as I can. What I hope you glean from my mother's story, from my story, is that I'm committed to ending abortion, to the reversal of Roe versus Wade. I have no idea when that will be. I don't know when the end is in sight. But my commitment to that goal only really matters if I utilize what I have today to end abortion, to save a life, to not get stuck in hopelessness, to not get stuck in paralysis, despite what we see around us. We have to remember that women in crisis, this very moment, they're not concerned with the outcome of abortion jurisprudence, or the specifics of our work, or even the politics of our movement. They are concerned with the crisis within the four walls of their home. And we need to be concerned about that crisis. We need to get in their shoes. We need to say, what can we do? What creative things can we do to reach them, to break into their world today, to find a life and help save it? I'm thankful I have so many examples of heroes of the cause that have done this exact thing, including Julie, the former director of Nebraska Right to Life. I know she was committed to ending abortion and to empowering women with real options when they're facing a crisis pregnancy. So the past speaks as to what our movement can do, right? The past tells us we can have victory. I know in Nebraska, we have laws on the books here, just like in Louisiana, that protect women from the lucrative abortion industry. States across the country have been offering women the pro-life alternative to abortion of adoption, halting abortion proponents, sharing with women that there is healing after an abortion. We have to continue this work. We have to keep our tunnel vision every day. I'm thankful too, not only for these examples, but for the examples I have in my adoptive family. Let me tell you a little bit about them. My adoptive parents took me into their care for the first time when I was 16 months through the Louisiana foster care system. They supported my birth mother and my family for many years as they needed, with food, with hygiene products, with continued care. They provided practical items for my family during our periods of starvation, abuse, and neglect. My adopted mother sat on the New Orleans board of Right to Life in Louisiana shares her own story of regret from aborting her only pregnancy when she was in her 20s. I've watched her counsel women in front of abortion facilities for years. She never gave up. And tomorrow, she's turning 76, and every single week she goes to the abortion clinic, holding a sign, "I had an abortion, please come talk to me." She has tunnel vision. This is my example. These are my examples. Tunnel vision. She doesn't know when the end of Roe is coming. I don't know when the end of Roe is coming, but they're committed fidelity to the cause, to ending abortion. My adoptive parents have also suffered with me through the loss of my birth mother, through the loss of my family after foster care. I was adopted when I was 9 years old. It was a very big transition to go from a family of, eventually my mother went on to have more children, so I'm one of 11, to go from that to being an only child. They wept with me, they walked with me through that. But now they share the joy of seeing my continued relationship with some of my siblings flourish. I know that Nebraska Right to Life has these examples too, everywhere. Personal stories, stories of heroes of the faith, heroes of the cause that continue to work without seeing an end in sight. And that's my message for you today. I hope my story and these stories will tell you that you're not alone in feeling the paralysis. You're not alone in feeling the hopelessness. But you see, we just can't stop. There's no stopping. I don't care who's president. I don't care what Congress is made up of. We are going to fight, and we're going to win in the end. We are going to persist in the end. And I don't know what that looks like for the next chapter of Nebraska Right to Life in the state of Nebraska, but I know that you guys are all in good hands, and that there will be pro-life legislation. I think I just heard about some at the Capitol coming forward that will protect life. We have to embrace that. We have to work toward that. As I close, I want to share that this is not easy, sharing all this about my personal life with you. It's very painful, it's very hard. But I am committed to doing so until the women like my mother know that they do have another choice. That there are people like you out there that are willing to help, people like my adoptive family that are willing to help. I often get this question, do you have to be a foster parent? Do you have to adopt a child to be pro-life? Absolutely not. I have never fostered a child or adopted a child. But I am supporting those who do. I am working with those who do. And I saw out in your four-way here that you'll have resources in your community, pregnancy centers that are working alongside the affiliate of Nebraska Right to Life and helping and supporting them in their mission to protect life. We have to work together with fidelity to the cause itself. We might disagree in here ourselves about so many different things, which is why staying on course with protecting that baby who has a heartbeat 18 days from conception is so important. Because if we don't do that, we're going to find there are differences among us. There are differences about health care, about immigration, about politics. But the way we stay on course is looking at those women, looking at the examples behind us, and by saying what is most important is that baby in the womb and that mother in crisis, and we're going to do everything in our power to protect them. And that is what I'm committed to for my entire life. Please join me in that commitment. Thank you. I think there's a time of question and answer, but I'm not sure where Sandy landed. So, no, I didn't mean landed like that. I just meant, hopefully she has a good sense of humor. I meant where she's at in the building right now, but I'll wait for her to come and moderate that for us. That's what you said, right? We do? Do we? Okay. Okay. Do you want me to moderate that then? Are you moderating that, or should I just moderate? Okay. No questions are fine, but. Sure. So Louisiana is so different from many parts of the U.S. in that we have a very bipartisan support of pro-life legislation. So we have a pro-life governor who's a Democrat, and I would say from my experience, especially I worked out in Colorado for a long time, that's very rare. And because of that, we've been able to push a lot of pro-life legislation through. We have, of course, late-term abortion bans. We have parental notification. We have women's right to know. We have adoption education. We have really the whole gambit of pro-life legislation that exists ultimately. I think one of the amazing things that I find in Louisiana is that even though, like I said, we have differences among us on other things within politics, we all stay, when it comes to the right to life, we're all committed to that goal, and that brings us together, that unites us together under that cause. Even in our own office, at Louisiana Right to Life in New Orleans, there's different beliefs on many different things, but because of our fidelity to the cause and for the unborn child, we can stay focused on getting laws passed. I know many of you might have heard of the Supreme Court case that recently was regarding admitting privileges in Louisiana, abortion admitting privileges, which ended up being a defeat for us, but we pressed through that, and I'm so thankful to have such a great team down there. I hope that answers the question. To make what? Yeah. He asked, I think essentially I understand as, why is it that the courts are allowed to uphold abortion when the control should be within the states? Is that what your question is about? If I understood correctly, is that your question? How are the courts able to still control everything? Is that the question? I just want to make sure before I try to answer. Absolutely, and and I think I can understand how we've come to this place in our society of accepting abortion on demand. You see, when we end human life at the large numbers in which we do through abortion, that has an impact on culture. It impacts the moral conscience of our nation. And I think because of that impact, we all are impacted in our families and in our lives in different ways, and so are our leaders. And that's why they need our continued prayer and our continued vigilance to support those who actually are fighting the good fight, which we heard a ton today. We need to continue supporting them, continue lifting them up in prayer, continuing asking what they need of us, because they're being pressed by this culture of death that pervades us. Any other questions? Yes, no, for sure. In fact, I get that question a lot because we have an organization called Democrats for Life in Louisiana. I know there's some other affiliates elsewhere that are trying to turn the party's pro-abortion extremism to try to confront them with that. It's very hard, but actually the sponsor of our admitting privileges bill, for example, that went before the Supreme Court was an African-American Democrat, and she's a champion for life. It's very unusual. I have no debate about that. It's very unusual, but I think what it's showing us is that even people who are very different than us may agree with us on the issue of abortion, and we need to be reaching out to them and finding out what they actually believe. And I know it's not like that in many other states. It wasn't like that when I worked in Colorado, and it's certainly not like that in many places of the country, but I'm hopeful that there can be reform in all of our organizations and sects of life where the focus of the unborn child will become paramount once again. I know it seems confusing, but I think there's hope even where there seems to be very little hope. So I did, I hope I didn't miss over this during what I was saying. I was in foster care for 7.5 years. So I was in and out between my biological family and my birth family for that time. I actually contracted tuberculosis during that time, which is a life-threatening lung disease. But I went back into care during that period. And I had scarring on my lungs from that time. But it was a painful experience, but I feel like again, going back to the theme of this talk today, is that what I have come to see is that through my own life, there's so many heroes within the pro-life movement, which include my foster parents and later adoptive parents, who stepped up and said, this child isn't unwanted. This child has value here. We're going to do everything we can for her and her family, for her birth mother, showing her compassion. And as I also mentioned, my adopted mother had an abortion herself, so she was familiar with the pain of abortion. And she ended up developing a relationship over time with my birth mother, which was really beautiful to see. So I hope that answers your question. Sure. Sorry, her question was, yes, her question and that answer I just gave was, did I have a relationship or have time with my birth mother after I was brought home from the hospital in 1990? Sure, I'm going to be very sensitive when talking about this, but I'll absolutely address it. I think when we talk about abuse within the family, we have to remember that it's much more pervasive among us than we might realize. And many of the women who are abortion vulnerable are facing abuse within their family, whether that be domestic abuse from a spouse or abuse among siblings. In my family of origin, there was abuse among siblings, meaning I had older siblings abusive toward me. And then I had a stepfather who was abusive toward me. And many in the pro-choice community will use that argument and say, should a child be born to end up experiencing abuse and neglect, et cetera, which my answer to that is, and I always address the abuse first. I say, it is horrific for any child to be a victim of abuse, always. But the answer to that is not abortion. And I always say this too, is that while those 7.5 years before I was adopted were some of the most painful of my life, and I've been in years of counseling and things like that, those kind of services to get assistance and help, that was a very small portion of my life. And abortion would have ended my life, right? Abortion wouldn't have given me any chance to go to college, get married, have my son. My adoptive parents actually right now have my son in their care. So a whole family was impacted, a whole nother family was impacted by my birth mother's choice to choose life despite her circumstances. And don't let anyone try to use that argument against you. Young people, I'm looking at you. Don't let them come and say, well, there's a child that's been abused, they're starving out there without assistance. There is assistance. You are the assistance. You are showing up for them. I'm confident of that. The question was, is there any legal protection for those who are being denied to be foster parents? Are you referring to wow, I'm so sorry to hear that. Usually that's not the case. From what I understand about, and this is something that often comes up too, is that there is a shortage of foster parents and a lot of foster care children. But I don't, unfortunately, I wish I could answer that for you. I don't know what resources. Maybe connecting with Sandy on that would be. Any other questions? Okay, sure. So I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, what can older women do to support the pro-life mission and the pro-life goals? I have to say, maybe I didn't mention this in the beginning. Amazingly, my adopted mother, when she first took me into care for the first time, was 46. So she, and I'm not saying that to say every 46-year-old to foster or adopt, but to say she was active with the pro-life community at that time in her life. And she was very, very active for decades and is still active. She and I spoke at the National March for Life 2 years ago together about our story, her sharing her regret from her abortion and then her experience with getting me in foster care. So there is support for women who are older in age who want to continue working in the movement. Like I said, she'll be 76 tomorrow, and she's still at it. So please don't be discouraged. And regarding healing, I think you mentioned abuse in the past and stuff like that. Regarding healing, I would say it doesn't matter what age you are, seek out that healing, because I believe healing brings clarity to us. Healing helps us stay focused on our ultimate heart mission, on our ultimate desire to save lives. So anyone else? I don't have any, sorry, his question was, I think, what did I weigh and lingering effects. The only lingering effects I had was the TB, like the scarring, the lung problems that I had, and I was very, very small. I've been in many communications with the state of Louisiana to get all of my records. I don't have all of my records. I unfortunately don't know the answer to that question. I just know about my transfer and the age that I was, which is very common with abortion survivors. They only know those certain details, and it takes a long time to get those. But I did have lingering effects with my lung development. I've never met my birth father. I am in pursuit of finding him. The question was, do I have a relationship with my birth father? I'm in pursuit of finding him. I do not have a relationship with him. I do have a very wonderful relationship with my adoptive father. Sure. Yes, the question was how to deal with hypocrisy within the pro-life movement, within Christianity in general. And I would say I certainly acknowledge that exists, absolutely. But back to what I said, tunnel vision. Tunnel vision, tunnel vision, tunnel vision on the ultimate goal of ending abortion. You know, I'm not saying to ignore what's happening around you, but I'm saying if we constantly are looking at that all the time, while discouraging, it'll make us want to quit. And I'm not quitting. We can't quit. There are going to be people among us that are hypocritical. There's going to be horrible stories out of foster care from pro-life people. There are going to be horrible stories of abuse. There are going to be horrible stories of scandals, regardless of what I'm doing today. So I have to be committed to living an honest life and committed to sharing my story, committed to sharing my mother's story, despite the hypocrisy around me. I'm not saying I don't see hypocrisy around me. I'm not saying I don't see hypocrisy within the church. What I'm saying is we can't land there. We can't live there. We can't dwell there. Christ isn't going to take excuses from us regards to, I know we've talked a lot about faith in here, so I feel comfortable saying that, but Christ is not going to relent. He's not going to say, well, it's too difficult. The hypocrisy is too great. There's too many bad examples out there. He's going to say, what did you do, though? What did you do to be that good Samaritan? So that's my cry to you. What are you doing? What am I doing? And I'm not judging you. I'm telling you I feel the paralysis myself. I feel the discouragement myself. In the political climate, in the climate in our country, I feel all those things with you. I'm saying we must continue because our Savior requires it. The Creator requires it. Devotion, fidelity to the sanctity of all life.
Well, let's see if I can finish this and stay on 2 feet. These stairs, are kind of beigey, obviously. And, obviously it just all looked muted when I was coming down, but I'm fine. So I just wanted to make some closing remarks. We don't have announcements to make for pro-life legislation for this session yet. Just stay tuned. Things are in the works. Some things are coming around. You may have heard Senator Albright talking about a bill that she is going to sponsor that would give tax credits to those families who have suffered a stillbirth. And having gone through that myself, I understand that there are some expenses that are surrounding a young couple bearing a child unexpectedly, certainly lost wages. But what I particularly like about the message that comes with a bill like this is an acknowledgement, again, of a child in the womb, the humanity and the significance of that child to that family. So I certainly embrace that legislation, as I'm sure you do, and support Senator Albright in that. But we do have some other things that may be coming that we're still working on, and I'm unfortunate I can't announce it today, but stay tuned. We'll keep you posted and let you know so that you can continue to support your state senators on whatever it is that we are able to come to completion with. Lastly, I just want to say again thank you to Father Sassy and Father Mattia for allowing us to be here, and I think our best thank you can be to return the facility in the best way that we found it. So look around your area when you're leaving. Make sure you get all your belongings. We do have volunteers that'll come through, but we always have those remaining items that someone happened to leave, and then we have to do the lost and found thing, which is really hard to do. So just look around and make sure that you pick up all of your belongings and any kind of trash. There are trash receptacles on the way out. And thank you for giving us an opportunity for a safe and valuable pro-life event today. Thank you so much.